Hey everybody, it's Sino. A couple of quick notes. I wanted to thank you guys for all the support. We're currently at 9,260 subscribers as I'm recording this. So thank you guys for the support. Remember when we hit 10,000, I'm going to have a special live stream with a face reveal. Stay tuned to the end. There's going to be a little bit of a preview for a new Scary Stories video format that I'm working on. It's going to be a quick story at the end, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Or you can always tweet me at Sino Studios BMF. I'll leave all my links in the video description below. It's the same username as well for Instagram and Snapchat. Also check out my second channel, which is going to be my vlogs channel, Sino Studios Vlogs. That'll be in the video description below. Thank you guys for all the support again, and let's get on with the video. Last Monday, the 13th, I had my wisdom teeth removed. Before that, I had a cavity in one of them that caused excruciating pain to radiate in the entire right side of my face. Within this past month, I've been on 2 prescription pain medications. This is the first time I've ever required them. And it turns out that the prescription grade pain medication messes heavily with my anxiety. I've been paranoid all morning. There's been sounds all through my apartment, in the attic, and from empty Oreo packs, etc. It's been just over a month since I moved in with my boyfriend, and my paranoia wasn't terrible until the pain meds. But with him having a set scheduled job, and me not having one, I work retail, so the schedule is a week-by-week play. Being home alone in the morning some days since my extraction have been hell, especially when I've been reading these stories. So I started out today paranoid, trying to do schoolwork, chores, anything I can to distract myself and make time pass. Finally, 3 o'clock hits and I go, fuck it, I can't be in this house any longer right now. I need to go get that baking pan for dinner tonight anyway. So I get up, I change out of my sweats into some jeans, and I leave. No makeup, hair only brushed. It's nice weather outside and my body is weird with heat, so I sweat a little on my drive. I get to Walmart. Walmart. And I go in, saying hello to a greeter and grabbing a basket, then going to the home goods. I'm on the hunt for a baking pan, but I pause in an aisle that has cutting boards because I'm unsure if my boyfriend had one. He moved down here from another state some months ago, but didn't do much hardcore cooking, so I start looking at those. Out of the corner of my eye, I see someone with a cart coming into the aisle. Due to how I was raised, and also just wanting to be polite, I look up and start moving closer to the shelves. I live in a more southern state in the US. We're all kind of polite here, or fake being polite. It's an older man. To me, an 18-year-old female. He looks to be in his 40s or 50s, and he's looking right at me. Excuse me, has anyone told you that you're beautiful today? His tone seems sincere enough, but it throws me off. My boyfriend has, I respond, almost a reflex. I don't want to get into a conversation with this dude. A brief flash of disappointment crosses his face, and he breaks eye contact with me, instead, looking in the direction his cart is facing. Well, now you've been told twice, he says, starting to move along. I have, I respond, as chipper as ever. Thank you. He moves on down the aisle, and I take one last glance at the cutting boards before I decide to move on to find the baking pan. To my luck, they're in the next aisle. I needed a specific size, so I go on the hunt for it, looking intently, picking up different pans, comparing prices. Then I see a cart coming from right down the aisle. I look up, a bit stunned, to see it's the same older man. I try not to think anything of it, making eye contact again and giving a half-hearted smile before looking back at the pans. He browses, then seems to pause almost right behind me. I'm intensely uncomfortable, so I grab a pan that seems like it would fit my needs, then leave the aisle. Something in me, a mix of my desire for a cutting board and the curious part of me wondering if I was being rational in my thinking of this guy being a creeper, decided to stop again in the cutting board aisle, the one where the dude told me I was beautiful. Lo and behold, as I'm looking again at the cutting boards, from the aisle mouth closest to me, the dude comes down. I look at him again, then go back to looking at the cutting boards. He walks down the aisle. I choose a cutting board, decide to have a glance at the knives above them, and see from the corner of my eye this guy turning his cart around and coming back towards me. I look more intensely at the knives now. I pick them up, look them over, wanting him to just see what I'm looking at, because I can feel his eyes on me. He's moving slowly. His cart gets right behind where I am and pauses. I can feel him either looking at the knives over my shoulder or just looking at me. I can't stand it. I put a knife quickly in my basket and I dart off, not looking back. I ended up going to the self-scan at the other end of the store than I was parked and took the long way out to my car, just in case. I'm still not sure if I'm just being paranoid or if I had a reason to be freaked out, but seriously, older man from Walmart, let's never meet again. I'm from the Netherlands and live with my boyfriend. This happened to us a year or two back, when we had just started living in this small apartment. Now, this guy had always been a bit odd, but I had lived in bad neighborhoods, and he hadn't done more than make noise before. It's the middle of the night, and we're all asleep when my dog starts barking, waking me up. I vaguely hear some sort of scratching sound in the living room, and I decide to wake up my boyfriend. He goes to check it out, and it's our upstairs neighbor, trying to pry open the tiny window in the kitchen area. He starts talking about how we threw garbage on his balcony. He lives above us, so that would be a feat. My boyfriend sends him away, seeing he was obviously on something. A few hours later, I wake up to walk the dog and see a fire truck outside our flat. Someone had set an apartment in the next flat over on fire. Luckily, the occupants weren't home and a resident of our flat had alerted everyone. Surprise, surprise, it's creepy upstairs neighbor. We instantly knew it was him, and apparently, he'd set our underground dumpster on fire the year before, so he was locked up almost immediately. Now we tend to sleep through a lot, so we're lucky our little pup started barking, or we probably would have died. Creepy upstairs neighbor, let's not meet. One day when I was younger, my mom and I visited my aunt's apartment. It's a giant looking house with a side driveway that leads around the back to a small parking lot for tenants, with the house entrances being off to the side, facing away, and hidden from the busy street. I don't remember how old I and my cousin, my aunt's daughter, were, but to the best of my memory, we were both somewhere around the ages of 8 to 12, with her being slightly older than I. It was still midday, and we were all hungry. So my mom and my aunt decided to go shopping, and were then going to pick up pizza on the way back for us all to eat. Me and my cousin were ecstatic, as we loved pizza. Our parents left, and me and my cousin stay and watch TV with the volume really low while browsing on her laptop. It's probably about 25 minutes after our parents left when we start seeing the front door lock shaking. We thought our parents were back home, but then we noticed something suspicious. Instead of the locks of the door quickly turning as if our parents got back, we instead saw that the locks were very slowly turning to unlock. We suddenly both realized it wasn't our parents, and definitely an intruder. We both stare at the front door silently, freaked out and frozen. I always thought those horror movies where the actors stand frozen in fear like idiots were fake, but it was this moment that proved that idea was wrong. As we both stood there frozen in horror, we both saw the top lock finally turn all the way after what felt like half a minute. Then we start to see the bottom lock slowly start to turn. The door was probably half a second from being unlocked completely, when suddenly, my cousin breaks free from being frozen in fear and sprints to the door and turns both of the locks to prevent the door from being opened. We dared not look out the second-story window to see who was trying to get in. We were horrified and stayed quiet, waiting in the living room. We didn't say a word to each other and just sat there on the couch. It was about 15 minutes until our parents got home. where we told them the whole ordeal and they were shocked. We don't know what would have happened if my cousin didn't sprint to lock the door, but to this day, I can remember very vividly seeing the door lock shaking rapidly and slowly turning. It was definitely very scary. I grew up in a small city, so when I moved into the mountains in Colorado, I took the opportunity to go on a fair amount of walks out in the woods all around my house. For the most part, I would only walk the woods behind our house, since we had a very large property. One day, feeling bored of the woods behind our house, I asked my parents, and they told me I could walk the woods across the street. I excitedly rushed out to go walking across the street. As soon as I got to the edge of the woods, though, I was already a bit unnerved. On the ground, I saw the shell of a bullet. I felt especially frightened because I have a fairly irrational fear of guns, but I decided to get over my fear and continue on because the case was obviously old, covered in dirt and such, and we lived by a big hunting town, so it was to be expected. The next weird thing I came across was a pile of deer hair. I, obviously not knowing much about hunting, saw it and thought that a doe must have laid there when she was having her babies. At that moment, I was excited, not realizing that the hair was most likely the result of a deer being shot in that spot. The final, weirdest, and worst thing I found was at a clearing in the woods. A clearing I didn't realize was on a person's property at the time. As soon as I got out of the clearing, I saw a large block of styrofoam with 2 iron rods stuck through it to keep it standing in place. It was full of bullet holes. Looking around, I noticed deer bones scattered around, and the bones of some other animals, including a full set of some small animals' bones, laying on a rock beside the styrofoam. Confused and not quite sure what I had found, I decided to go and get my parents. When I got them to come, I first showed them the pile of hair, and they pointed out to me how it was probably where a deer had been shot. Then, I led them to the styrofoam, and the first thing they pointed out was that they were right in someone's front yard. Mind you, it was a giant front yard, and the house was small, off in the distance. After looking at the dead animals, we noticed 2 things. Not only did one of the animals have a chain around it, chaining it to one of the poles that the styrofoam was on, but some of the animals I couldn't recognize at first were obviously domestic cats and dogs. At the end of the day, all we could do was walk home. It sounds terrible, but the animals were obviously dead for a long time, and we believe they were killed by the crazy former owner of the property we were on. The owner was long gone, and the police force in our own town was so small and poorly trained that they probably would have simply gotten mad at us for being on someone's property and not really care about what we found. I'm sad that we couldn't do more, but I genuinely believe no justice would have come of calling the police. I'm from the Netherlands, and I live with my boyfriend. This happened to us a year or 2 back, when we had just started living in a small apartment. Now, this guy had always been a bit odd, but I had lived in bad neighborhoods, and he hadn't done more than make noise before. It's in the middle of the night, and we're all asleep, when my dog starts barking, waking me up. I vaguely hear some sort of scratching sound in the living room, and decide to wake up my boyfriend. He goes to check it out, and it's our upstairs neighbor, trying to pry open the tiny window in the kitchen area. He starts talking about how we threw garbage on his balcony. He lives above us, so that would be a feat. My boyfriend sends him away, seeing he was obviously on something. A few hours later, I wake up to walk the dog, and I see a fire truck outside our flat. Someone had set an apartment in the next flat over on fire. Luckily, the occupants weren't home, and a resident of our flat had alerted everyone. Surprise, surprise. It's creepy upstairs neighbor. We instantly knew it was him, and apparently, he'd set our underground dumpster on fire the year before, so he was locked up almost immediately. Now we tend to sleep through a lot, so we're lucky our little pup started barking, or we probably would have died. Creepy Upstairs neighbor. Let's not